I'm Janice Hostegger. After 3 decades in the marketing business and many years of being an entrepreneur, I've learned a thing or two about marketing. Join me as we talk about marketing, small business, and life in between. Welcome to My Weekly Marketing. You, my friend, have a money story. You may not realize you do, but we all have one. It's largely from the values we grew up with or the experiences in our life. And that money story turns into beliefs. Beliefs such as wanting money is greedy, money doesn't grow on trees, you feel guilty for having more money than other people, or there's never enough money. And we as entrepreneurs bring that story into our own businesses. And particularly as women, we let it affect how much we charge and how comfortable we are asking for money. That's what we're talking about today with financial life and business coach Lynda McDonell. Lynda believes understanding your finances and getting good at them doesn't have to be intimidating. Her mission is to simplify those numbers, making them more accessible for everyone, and in particular, women business owners. With her background in corporate finance and as a CPA, she has deep insights into the world of business finance. But she doesn't just talk numbers because she's also a certified life coach. So she helps her clients overcome the mental hurdles of money and entrepreneurship, empowering them to take charge as CEOs. We all know that we're in business to make money, but sometimes we forget how important that is, and there are a few things we do to undercut our success. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's listen to my interview with Lynda. Well, hey, Lynda, how are you today?
I'm great, Janice. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great. So I want to hear more about your business and what you do because it all sounds fascinating to me, and I think it will be fascinating to my listeners as well. So tell me a little bit about your background, how you got involved in it, and what you do.
Sure. Yes. Why don't I just start where I began in my career? So I started out many moons ago as a CPA. That's how I began my career. I got into that field because my father was a stock analyst down on Bay Street, which is the equivalent of Wall Street in Canada. Okay. And he used to take me downtown and I really learned about numbers and the stock market and not being afraid of them. And so I ended up getting into the field of being a CPA because I had this vision that I wanted to work in one of those office towers, just like my dad. So that's how I started my career. And it was really great working with lots of great companies. And then I moved into corporate finance. So I worked for a Fortune 100 company doing that for many years, took a career break to raise my kids unregrettably. And then we got to a point where they were launching and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself. And I remember during this time, people would always come to me with questions about money and, their finances and their business. And I never thought much about it because it was like, it just came so easily to me until one day, a friend of mine who I had been talking to about money and business, she said, "Lynda, will you coach me?" And I sort of looked at her and I was like, okay. And then the rest was history. And because I realized that I started to spend time with her and I loved teaching her about money, about business, what you're supposed to be doing when, but also what I came to realize is that money doesn't come easily to everybody. And that can also create a lot of fears and trepidation around money. And it wasn't just about teaching all the nuts and bolts about money. It was about understanding how we think about the finances, how we think about our own personal money and interweaving that. And that's where I created my company, which is named Peak Prosperity, which is really the basis of creating prosperity in our lives through our business. And so it's not just about making money. It's about making money in our business and feeling good about it, feeling comfortable, like feeling fully aligned with what we're doing. So that's how I found my way into being a financial life and business coach.
Oh, that is cool. I love, first of all, that I think you did what a lot of us do, like when our kids get older and out of the house, we've kind of been focusing on our kids for so many years. And suddenly it's like, Okay, now what? I mean, it's like, I, my life isn't over now. I'm too young to
No,
retire. What do I do now? Kind of thing. And so I think
exactly.
I love that, that transition. I think in so many people I've met has been pushed by the fact that we're not the same people that we were when we were, right out of college or grad school or whatever. We've changed, we've lived our life a little bit. And so suddenly we have this need to kind of reinvent ourselves. So I love that that was the impetus for your change as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. I mean, it was great. And it's funny, like we take on this identity, getting out of the workforce, that I just really discounted all my previous experience. And then I just have regained that, and, obviously brushed up on my skills and done work around that. But I really had to do a lot of my own work. And even in the process of doing my own work, that helped me become a better coach, to realize that, like, we all have crap that our brain presents to us
So
around
true.
different things. And so, nobody is immune to it. So it's really
Yeah.
important that, like, we have to use that to help us leverage and go to the next level, as opposed to have it pull us back.
Oh yeah, that is so absolutely true. And I love that you said that, because we do, I think, especially as when we're parents, we look at our kids and our values, I think, a little closer, and start, like you said, just sort of taking a look internally and trying to figure out why we are the way we are, and kind of communicate those values to our kids about certain things. And I think it causes us to just have these aha moments in our own lives as well. But especially around money, because I think we all have our money story, right? I mean, formed in our youth. So I grew up, my dad had a small business, and money kind of came and went. Sometimes it was seasons of prosperity, and sometimes times were tight. So we had to tighten the belt a little bit. And I think, like, for me personally, it created a little money insecurity. And, we all have those, money doesn't grow on trees. The love of money is the root of all evil, So, as a life coach, on top of that, how do we move past those messages? Do you have any advice about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing we can't do is pretend they don't exist.
Mm,
So we have to face them head on, because it's kind of like something that's always going to be there. When we were born, our brains were wired to look out for danger. And so these things that we tell ourselves, these money stories that we tell ourselves, is really just our brain telling us to look out for danger. And honestly, they're there for good reason. They are there from preventing us. I mean, if you just equate it to something else, it's preventing us from, like, walking out into a street full of traffic. It's preventing us from touching the stove, right? It's similar thoughts. So we have to bring them with us, acknowledge them, but then also look for evidence that other thoughts exist. Because we're so good at sometimes finding that evidence and truth as to why what we think is true. But then when we challenge our brain to say, well, what if something else was true? And start looking for that evidence. Like, what if I am safe with my money? What if I don't have this insecurity with my money? And what is the evidence to prove it? And usually when we challenge ourselves with it, or we have a coach that starts to challenge ourselves, we find ways to see that, yeah, we are okay. Yes, we have had times where we've had setbacks and we picked ourselves up and got going, but we conveniently forget those sometimes. And we need to just remind ourselves that we have that capability, and then just start accumulating this bank of evidence towards something different. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the opposite. It doesn't necessarily have to be, we're swimming in a pool of money and we're full of abundance, because that doesn't always feel real
right.
and believable. And a lot of times that's some of the talk we might hear when you talk about people, talking about money, is that there's unlimited money in the world. And that is true. But if we're not ready to believe that, then we might just find something that we do believe and keep finding evidence for that. and just start moving through that slowly. And that's really the key to start working against those beliefs we have about money, especially as business owners, because we're going to take those right there with us. It's going to come with us in the way we price. It's going to come with us in the way we sell. It's going to come with us in the way that we ask for money, right? Because you can price, but then you may do the services, but then you still have to ask for the money. And if someone's not paying you and we're like, oh, I don't want to ask them for that money, like all these things start to come with us, how we spend our money in our business, how we think about paying ourselves in the business. All these things will come with us. So if we're not paying attention to this this work on our money mindset, it's going to hold us back.
Yeah. Yes. So true. That is so true. So certainly in so many people I've met, entrepreneurs that I've worked with, and certainly in myself. And I think we talked a while back, and we were talking about how, especially being stay-at-home moms, how we were volunteering in the schools and volunteering for nonprofits. And so suddenly somebody comes to us for the kind of work that we have been doing maybe for free, and now we're charging for it, and how that feels a little icky almost, or it feels a little odd, Right. But one of the things that I know that I focused on, and I don't even know, well, several years ago, I've done some mission work in other countries and some very, very poor areas. And I remember meeting a mother in Haiti who had watched her child die because all she could afford to give her was coffee. And it was such an eye-opening experience for me on a lot of levels, obviously, but also that money can be a force for good. It can be life-changing, especially like if it's poured into an economy through small business loans in other countries, or, there's just so much good money can do too. And so personally, I kind of keep that in my mind when I'm, ready to, just give away my services.
Yeah.
Because obviously a business exists to make money, right? So, but I think I think you're right. I think we have to have some sort of like a little internal dialogue or monologue that talks about, all right, so money isn't necessarily evil. Money isn't bad. There is money to go around. I mean, do you have any other little, I would say, just narratives that people can use?
Yes. One of the things I work on a lot with clients, and I focus on working with female business owners, particularly, is we talk about what money allows for them, which is freedom, options, and impact. So it's not about the dollars and cents of money, though that is just a tool to create that freedom, options, and impact. And especially I find with women, we really resonate with the impact, because it's about the impact we create, not just on ourselves and on our lives, but it's on all the people around us, because we are caregivers. We are people who don't necessarily just think of ourselves. And when you realize, just with your example is perfect for this, is like what money allows for us to do. So we can change the trajectory of other people's lives, whether it's our children, whether it's other family members, whether it's friends, our local community, the broader global community. If we see money from that perspective, then all of a sudden we feel like we want to be able to make that money. We want to be able to create, to earn that value from the amazing services that we're providing, so that we can do things like that. It's not just about putting the money in the bank account and keeping it all to ourselves and never spending it.
Right. And that can be really empowering, right?
Very empowering.
Yeah. Yeah. We can change things.
We can change the world. And it's been shown that the studies have shown that when women have wealth, they use it for impact. And so that is a huge, revelation that I think that as business owners, we all need to keep in mind that, yes, like money isn't the root of all evil. Money can be the root of changing the world and making a difference and making it better for the next generation, right? It could just be, creating, generational wealth. I like to also think of it as legacy wealth, because you're not just doing it for your own lineage. When you think of a legacy, it's like, what is the legacy that you want to leave for everyone? What is it that you want them to say about you? And if money allows you to enhance that legacy, I mean, how can that be a bad thing?
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's not all about, putting the pool in the backyard or, I don't know, just retiring rich or whatever, owning the jet that people
right. I mean, there is like highly indulgent forms of wealth, but there's nothing wrong with a little bit of self-care, a little bit of self-enjoyment. Like what are the things? I mean, really, that's the whole point of life, is to live it. And that's why I do focus on that prosperity part of it. It's like, who are we becoming as we're creating that wealth? We always have to keep in mind is like, sometimes we push against creating money because we think we're going to become someone else. And I'll be totally honest with you. All money does is make us more of who we already are. So if you're someone who's generous with $10, your last $10, you will be incredibly generous with $100,000. It's not going to change who you are. So that's what we need to focus on, is we've created these stories in our head based on, really maybe one or two people we have seen that may be misusing wealth. We don't like the way that they're seeing it. And we might paint them all with that brush, or we might think, oh, that's like going to be contagious on us. And it's not. It's not that case at all. Is we're just going to become a richer, and I mean richer as like inside out, like a richer version of ourselves. That's really what money, that is the tool that will allow us to be that next level of ourselves.
I love that. Love that. What are a few tips that you have for business owners that are maybe undercharging for their services or their goods?
Great question. So the first thing is I like to take my clients through what I call like an integrated pricing strategy. So if you often hear charge your worth, I actually disagree with that comment, because it's implying that you're worth something, that and it's more about your services, the business that you provide, the services that you provide. And it's a very small delineation, but it's a big one, because all of a sudden you're taking yourself out of the equation and making it very objective rather than subjective about us. Because then you're saying, well, I'm new and I'm this. It's like, okay, wait a minute. What is the service that you're providing in terms of the value to your client, to your customer? Because it really is irrelevant how you feel about yourself. It's more about what you're providing. So, that's a really important piece, is to pay attention to ourselves and those little, again, sneaky thoughts that creep in to that. It's also, you also want to think that, especially when I talk about an integrated pricing strategy, one of the things I say, okay, well, let's look at the competition. But don't assume that the competition's money mindset is all figured out as well. So we tend to think, oh, well, I'll give you an example. Is I have one of my clients owns a hair salon. And so, she's mostly concerned of, well, everyone else charges this amount. I can't charge that, or I can't charge more than that. And I had this conversation where I said, wait a minute, let's talk about a few things. So what is your experience? And, she's been doing this for 20 years and she's thinking she needs to charge the exact same as an apprentice. And so again, like that's not putting her, that's putting her skill, the value of her skill, the experience, which is not her. And so, you think about things like that. You don't just take a broad brush and say, okay, that's what everyone is charging. Your customer will value experience and wisdom and expertise. That all needs to be included. What also needs to be included when we do an integrated pricing strategy is cost. Cost being what does it actually cost to provide what you're providing? So it includes a lot of things. It includes it's called the overhead, which is what is the cost of running your business if you have 0 clients? So we all have things, right? It could be rent if we have an office, electricity. It could be the software that we use. The list goes on. The things that don't matter if we have a client or not. So you have to include a piece of that. You also have to include what is the cost of actually delivering your service. So depending on what it is, like I'll give an easy example. If you're selling a product, you obviously have the cost of, like, say you're selling cupcakes. It costs you to make a cupcake, like, in all the ingredients. So you have to make sure you cost that in as well. But the third part is you also have to make sure that you're paying yourself. And you're costing that in, because if you were to hire somebody to do the work that you as a CEO are doing, we would have to pay them. We have to remember to think about that. We have to cost in some profit, because profit is what we use to reinvest back in our business. And if we're just pricing to just skirt the line, we're never going to be able to grow our business. And that's why I find a lot of business owners are saying there's never enough money. Like, I can't ever seem to get ahead, because we've priced ourselves so close to the line that we haven't given ourselves a fighting chance to get ahead. And so, and I'll be honest, the answer is not always raising prices. A lot of people think that's like, okay, it's not raising prices. We have to look at all parts of the business. It could be that we're spending money on things we don't need to be spending on. There's different levers to look at. But when you take this pricing strategy approach and you map it all out on paper or in a spreadsheet or whatever you feel good on the whiteboard, you start to look at it a little differently than just saying, well, I only think someone's only going to pay this. One of my clients said this once, and it's always resonated with me, and I'll share it, she said, I'm putting myself in other people's pocketbooks.
Yes.
And
definitely do that.
Right. So we as business owners are deciding what our clients can afford, what they can pay. And that's not up to us to decide.
No,
it's not up to us to decide, because there are people that will spend, if you think of a purse, there are people that will spend $5,000 on a purse. There are people that won't spend $10 on a purse, and they want to go to thrift shop and get a purse. Like, there will always be someone who will complain about your price. So we cannot put ourselves as business owners into their pocketbook, because there are people that might spend nothing on your service, but then are driving a really nice car because they've made priority decisions in their life, but that's their life.
Yeah. And do you want that customer that only spends less than $10 on a purse? I mean, perhaps not. You're absolutely right. Yeah. I've done that so many times, especially when I was doing design work, because I think, oh, this won't take me that long. I'll just do it quick. They probably can't afford much. I don't want to lose them. In fact, there's a new I met a person that runs a new nonprofit organization. And I was talking to my coach about it, and I said, oh, their marketing, they're really struggling with their marketing. I can probably just help them, but I feel like I should volunteer. And she's like, no, you're not. You're not going to volunteer, And then I still have that tendency to want to say, well, just let me help you. It won't be, I'll feel better about, like you said, it's that nurturing part of us. I'll feel better about myself if I can help them with this. And they really need the help when I don't know what their books look like. I have no idea. Maybe it's just that. Yeah. Yeah. So,
yeah. And I've had as a financial coach and my CPA back, I've seen the books of a lot of people, and you'd be surprised what people, say they can afford. And one of the things you think about too is if you reverse the roles, when you want something bad enough and you value something bad enough, you say to yourself, how can I afford it?
Right.
as opposed to saying, if you don't necessarily, if you want it, but you like, it's not like the highest priority thing, you might just say, I can't afford it. And you shut that down.
Mm-hmm.
But people who really so it is our job as business owners to communicate the value that someone's going to be receiving. Absolutely. And that's where you come in. But
Right.
it's definitely about understanding that when the money mindset of our customers, that when they really feel that what we provide to them is very important, they will have that conversation with themselves is how can I afford it? Now, I'm not by any means suggesting we go crazy on our pricing or anything like that, but just to take ourselves out of their pocketbook and to really focus on being firm in our own value and understanding that the pricing ourselves in a way that we can afford to pay ourselves, afford to have profit in our company, to reinvest, to make that personal impact. That's the most important thing. That is why we got into business as a business owner. It wasn't a volunteer hobby.
And our customers are paying for results.
Results.
That's what they want. If you can do the job, if you really need something, you're going to pay what it takes to get it done. We just had a roof put on our house last summer and, it was a lot more expensive than I wanted it to be, but we paid for it because we need a roof. But even beyond that, especially with, I'm just thinking in my own field in marketing, marketing drives results. So it's more of an investment than a cost. So, you can tell I'm just doing my own work here as we talk here. It's like, these are good reasons, as, and trust the process, the system that you have. They're not paying for you. They're paying for the results. So trust the process that you have and implement it and drive it home for them and give them the results that they want and need.
Yes. And the reality is, and look, we've all had experiences. So let's draw on that where we have gone with the lowest cost alternative.
Yes.
And then how many times have you gone and hired somebody to come, do something at your house? Let's say they do it wrong. Mm-hmm. And then you end up going to hire the person that is properly priced for the value of the work because they're experienced and all that. And you get the work done right. So think about that as well. Is like being the lowest price isn't always, one, perceived by the customer as you're getting the best quality work. But two, if they choose to go to someone else that's less expensive, they may end up back with you anyways.
Oh, totally. Yes. Yeah. Yes, I've done that. Been there, done that. So you should tell people, or I will tell people, that you have this excellent download on your site, CEO Monthly Money Success Checklist, which so this is something that we should print off every month, right? And kind of go through, or week 1, week 2. So it's a kind of a breakdown. Tell us more about this.
It is. Yeah, I'd love to. So one of the things that I see with business owners, when we get into business, we're good at something. That's why we get into business. We all have an experience and we're good. But then all of a sudden there's this money and business part that has to come alongside. And we're like, oh my goodness, I don't know anything about this. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, when I'm supposed to be doing it, how I'm supposed to be doing. And so what I did is I wanted to give our women business owners a resource as a place to start. To say, okay, I just need to know what I need to be doing when each week of the month. And so what this checklist does is it breaks it down, because often the one thing I find that scares people the most about finances and money, especially as it comes to business, but in general, is it just feels like there's just so much to do and we don't know what to do first. We don't know what to do when. And so this breaks it down. Now, and what's great about the checklist is it doesn't matter whether you have a bookkeeper or not. That part is irrelevant. What it focuses on is the work that we need to be doing as business owners, as CEOs, which is what we are. Doesn't matter if you're a business of one, by the way, we're still CEOs. That if we're that business, what we need to be doing, because A lot of times we think that if we have a bookkeeper, we just ship it off to someone and we get all that money work done for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we never have to look at it. And so the purpose of the checklist is to say, no, we have a responsibility as a CEO to know what the heck's going on in our business.
Yes.
Even if someone is doing the actual, I'll call it maybe the grunt work, if you want to look at it, the processing of something, we are still responsible for making the decisions, because the reality is when we look at the information that comes back, when we use data and metrics, and it's not all money data, but like marketing, and as you know, there's lots of data in there. We develop a process around it. It like opens up a whole new world for us. And we can start that's how you take your business to the next level. But if you're never paying attention and you're only just looking at your bank account as a way to make decisions in your business, we're going to be really challenged to start getting ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's going to happen is we're going to get very behind in the books. And I mean, I just started offering bookkeeping in my firm because I wanted to help women get back to where they want and set them up. And so a client just came to me and she hasn't done her book since 2021.
Okay.
And it's a challenge because she's struggling because she hasn't gotten ahead in her business because she hasn't caught up, and she's gotten so far behind, but now it's just such a daunting task that she's like, I can't even look at it. So this checklist, the purpose of this is once you get caught up, then you'll know what to do each month so that you don't get behind again.
Yeah,
so that you just have these simple systems and routines. And I've put some time estimates beside them because I want people to realize that it doesn't have to take 10 hours a week to do it. Once you get going, it's very quick. And I modeled it after how long it takes me. It really doesn't take a long time. So a lot of these things, like I said, 15 minutes, it might take 5.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just do it and you stay on top of it, it's very, very easy. It's like kind of like housework. If you just stay on top of things, we don't get behind, and then it doesn't get daunting. So that was the purpose of the checklist.
Oh yeah, I think it's super helpful, and I'll put the link to this in my show notes. But yeah, you just list all the things for each week, and it's really, just a really easily digested list, I would say. And I love that you put on here like review bookkeepers' files, because you're right. If somebody else is doing it for you, you still have to know what those numbers are and make sure that everything is correct and your KPIs. And I tell my marketing clients this all the time: your numbers tell a story, and that certainly is true with your finances too. Although I'm such a hypocrite because I am the person that just hates going into my financial software. And I keep thinking, because I think I have Xero is the software I use. Yes. But if you have that or Google, or not Google, QuickBooks, yes. It can download all your transactions for you. So it's all there, and it makes me lazy because I think, oh, it's all going in there. I'll just, when I get a couple minutes, I'll go through and check through everything. But the reality is that you need to do that at a regular basis, and just stick it on your calendar and say, okay, this week on Monday morning, or every Tuesday morning, or whatever, go ahead and take a look at it.
And along with that, I'll tell you a little tip. So one of the things that we do is if we get a software system for doing our own books, or even if we have a bookkeeper doing it, the way they organize things in these bookkeeping systems are standardized. It doesn't mean that they have to remain that way. So we have the ability to create categories for things that are meaningful. And that's one of the things that I help with my clients is to massage the way their books are. So everything's still accurate and good for tax and all of that. But it's really so that it's useful for them as a business owner. So they're able to look at certain things to make their decisions, because everyone's business is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But there might be certain things about your business that helps to drive decisions. And so if we can put that bookkeeping information in such a package that it drives good information, then you're more willing to look at it. You're not just going to file it away. I mean, for my clients, I actually give them a dashboard where I pull out, okay, these are all the things that you need to know. And then I give them a little blurb and say, okay, just notice these couple of things, or maybe think about these couple of things, because that's what pokes us into pushing ourselves into something different. And because sometimes there's signals that we don't see. But when we can look at that information that's set up meaningfully, it's so clear. Like you said, the story becomes very easy to read. So, but we have the agency and the authority to reshuffle the way our bookkeeping is done so that it does tell that story. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that because they think they're going to mess something up for taxes and things like that. And you know what? It's not. 9 times out of 10, it's not. Or we can fix it quite easily. But I think it's important for the audience to understand that there's no perfectly standard way. It just you can create as many accounts as you want to make it meaningful.
That's good to know. That really is. And that makes it less intimidating too. If you just need to just pop in to look at the numbers versus, I mean, I don't know. I think I was just like, I somewhere along the line developed a fear of math, it's just not my thing. But this isn't like advanced calculus. This is just a spreadsheet, so, but somewhere along the line, if I have 2 things to do, I'm always going to choose the thing that's not numbers related first. And I think that's all of us. We always want to put off the thing that we don't enjoy, right? So, so that's really good to know. I mean, I think if you get to know your bookkeeping system well enough, or have somebody come in and like my accountant set my account up for me, so I was able to kind of go in and see things easily. But on the flip side, I don't really know the bookkeeping system all that well because she set it up for me. So there is something to be said for just kind of jumping right in and getting to know it and clicking around in it and trying to, figure it out. So
play around with it, because the reality is that if you have a bookkeeper, they don't know your business all that well. They're just
don't.
dealing with the data and putting it in certain places, but they don't know how your brain works.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's our responsibility as CEOs to have conversations with our bookkeeper, or even just to do it ourselves if we're doing our own bookkeeping, but to really think is, how do I make this data meaningful? Just like with marketing data, there is so much out there, especially when you get into ads and all these CTR. And, I mean, it's not meaningful unless we know what we're benchmarking it against. We're looking at trends. We're understanding like how it all fits into the big picture. That's when it becomes meaningful. And it's exactly the same with the financial data. If you just look at a number in and of itself, it means absolutely nothing. But when you start to compare it to, well, what were we doing last month? What was my plan for this? How is this relating to this other thing? Because usually there's something relating to something else. It creates that story, which we're then able to decide, do we like the story that it's telling, or do we want to recraft the story?
Love that. Lynda, I could talk to you for hours about this because there's so much here to unpack. But how can people find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, well, I spend a lot of time on Instagram, and my account is Peak Prosperity. Peak is PIQUE. And you can also find me. My website is peakprosperity.com. I'm also on Facebook. So that's probably one of the best ways to get in touch with me.
That's great. Lynda, I just really appreciate the time that you've spent here today. And I just really want to thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love having these conversations, and thank you for allowing me to be on your stage to have it.
I seriously could have talked to Lynda for hours about this topic. I find it so interesting, but you can do one better. Go to her website at peakprosperity.com, that's Pique prosperity.com, and look for her checklist. I'll put the link in my show notes at myweeklymarketing.com/27. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be thrilled if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts. These podcasts take a lot of time to put together, so if you find it helpful, I would love to know that. I appreciate you. See you next time. Bye for now.